Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 7th of March, and we're getting some interesting readings now here. Usually when we get this kind of plus 13.5 on the DOC, it's a warning that you're starting to get into extreme categories. Now, the interesting aspect about it, though, if you're looking for a short, like sustained short, that's not what I would call it. This would be, from a candlestick standpoint, following three methods, which should lead to a new high made, and that would be consistent with what we've seen from this setup here, where you have a complete reset of the DOC, steel and orange, these peak levels. What you really look for at this particular point, you have to see red move below the zero before you get what I would call a significant meltdown moment. So we're clearly going to be some days away from that. So the potential for a move back up is actually better than a further breakdown. It's kind of surprising to think of it in those terms, but it's just a matter of looking back at what typically causes a deep correction move, and usually you have to have that red DOC dipping down below that zero line. So we're not quite seeing that yet. So I think prognosticators of doom and gloom, which seem to be everywhere, and it's always interesting when they're telling everybody to sell, and the market doesn't go down. You have to wonder, why is that? Well, we've just had our next most recent set of fund increases, which means that in this decline, they've been buying that dip, and we know what happens after they typically do that. Now, the euro, right off the fail-safe line here at the magenta, puts us right back into the bottom end of the range that we've been looking at for some time. And you can see, going back a long period, that the euro is pretty much caught in this range here. Before we were in the cycle between 114 and 111. Now it's down at this danger level, and that's just because the uncertainty with European Parliament, the elections taking place in April, and there's just a lot of headwinds at this particular point. Plus, the expectation that rates for the U.S. will climb. Zero Hedge had a good article about the capital flight from Europe to the U.S. Very interesting, particularly from Italy and places like that, where things are on the edge. If the ECB doesn't continue to ease, they would have very difficult time managing their situation, overregulation, the whole nine yards. You have the U.S. going the exact opposite direction. Certainly a far more attractive environment for people who want to put their money, which we've broken down below my 119 that I've had as a short below level, with the expectation of still reaching that 113. I think if we start to get any kind of rate hike, you could actually move to those levels. We'll see if that takes place. And USO is going to remain flat again. ABM, perfect choice to use as a pivot at this spot. We're sort of stuck in that short range. You get a little bit of positivity from that move, but I think overall this is still more short category than anything, but I don't think you can expect a whole lot of move. They're sort of reached an equilibrium at this particular point. Gold has been under a little bit of pressure, got a little extreme. This is a good example of mild return when you have that orange moving above, particularly from the steel being at negative 13.5. A little oversold, but you see that's that breakdown of the red DOC right there is that clear turn. And you can see that's what had the effect. We're not seeing that from the markets. Big difference. So there's notable comparison changes. We can see that we started turning orange, well, gosh, the other night right about there, but the 2381, and then it just cascaded. It wasn't until later here we dipped below the red, started to move back up, and it crossed nicely there and stayed out of the range, just couldn't continue it. And then you got a little overbought with short-term buyers, but continue to start applying more pressure with the rising red, and first broke into the negative 13.5 to negative 7 zone, and then right here it clicked right out of that negative 7.5 zone and took off. and that was the move that really became clear, and then you end up seeing the cyan move below the red DOC. Shakeout had already proven that it was on a nice upscale, so fairly decent turnaround point to capture. So all in all, it was fairly nice. No complaints about that whatsoever. We'll continue to follow the updates on these as it goes. Real close to that alteration I have for a couple of these paint bars, so still working on a few little details. It's like you get into it and it's like you want to make one change and it builds into additional ones, and so you keep going a little bit. I'm going to wrap it up so that I can at least get it out to you, and then I can go back and continue to add in some of the other things I want to. Ongoing process, always. As always, though, look for me on the Skype chat. I had major power failure here in Italy with a huge lightning storm. It looked like a transformer got hit and a big explosion, and we lost power for a while. But back up and running, so it's all good. As always, trade well.